The third of a set of 5 questions that the Rebbe raises in the Sikha has a certain degree of complexity in that it requires an understanding of the ground rules that Rashi has for their incorporation into what is otherwise a Pshuta Shel Mikra commentary. It involves a close reading of the style in which Rashi presents this midrashic material and brings the study of Rashi to a new level. By way of example, I am going to look at Rashi's commentary to Pasuk Chaf Vav in this very same parak, and then we will look at his use of midrashic material to the early Pasukim of Shmot Perek Aleph. And from there we will move to the third of the 5 questions that the Rebbe in this Sikha raises to Pasuk 20. But first, Shmot Perek 15. Following the incident whereby Bnei Yisrael complained over the fact that after traveling 3 days in the wilderness, the realities of life set in, they come to an oasis, and the water is undrinkable. They did the right thing in bringing the matter to Moshe, who, Vayitzak El Hashem, cries out in prayer to God. God points him in the direction of an eitz, not quite sure what this eitz was. Moshe takes it and Vayashlech El Hamayim, throws it into the oasis, and Vayim Teku Hamayim. The waters become matok, sweet, drinkable, and the problem is solved. There was some madness, it appears, behind the sequence of events, reflected in the final words of this pasuk, V'sham nisahu, for which one of the interpretations is that this was part of the beginning of a lengthy process to develop bitachon, trust, in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and there at Marah he tested them. This point is brought home in the following pasuk, where God says, Im shama tishma l'kol Hashem Elokecha, that if they listen, obey, follow, and commit themselves to the directives of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then kol hamachala asher samta b'Mitzrayim lo asim alecha, all of the sicknesses, the plagues that had been placed against the Egyptians, lo asim alecha, I will not place those sicknesses and diseases against you. And this is followed by a rather problematic statement, ki, because, Ani Hashem Rafecha. Resh Pei Aleph, to heal. In this case, the word Rafecha is a noun. I, God, am your healer. Rashi is troubled by the link between the statement of Kol HaMachala Asher Samti B'Mitzrayim and Ki Ani Hashem Rafecha, and offers 2 interpretations. At the conclusion of the first, Rashi states V'zehu Midrasha, that the interpretation has a midrashic basis, recorded in the Mechilta. And then he goes on to offer a second option, introducing that second option with the words Ulefi Pshuta, that this option is aligned with the Pshuta Shel Mikra. We have here 2 anomalies. Firstly, the identification of the category, one being midrashic, the other being pshat. And furthermore, if for whatever reason there is a need for a second option, logic dictates that the Pshuta Shel Mikra should come first, and then the Midrashic. Here, the order has been reversed. I introduced this example in order to contrast this commentary with a series of commentaries to the opening Pasukim of Sefer Shmot. In his commentaries to the Pasukim in Shmot Perek Aleph, from Pasuk Zayin to Yud Gimel, Rashi quotes extensively from Midrashic material. For many of the commentaries in this selection, there is an option 1 and an option 2. For some, the option 1 is drawn from Midrashic material, a Gemara in Sotah, in Shmot Rabbah. The second option, however, is clearly Midrashic and is identified as such with the header or Midrashah or V'Rabbeinu Darshu. The need for a second Midrashic option comes about on account of the fact that whatever the issue to which option 1 responds, it also at the very same time creates a second problem from the standpoint of the Pshuta Shel Mikra, and to this Rashi will draw on a Midrash to respond to this anomaly. The ground rules for the 2 options, however, will differ. Option 1, even as it comes from a Midrashic source, must meet the test of Pshuta Shel Mikra. Option 2, identified as Midrashic, is not bound by the Pshuta Shel Mikra. Which brings us to question 3. We have here a textual anomaly. Rashi provides us with information drawn from 2 Midrashic sources, one a Gemara in Sotah, the other from the Mechilta. We will look at shortly the inclusion by Rashi of the statement Kede'ita B'Sotah, but at face value, in light of the fact that neither has a Rabbeinu Darshu or Midrashah header, each of the statements introduced by Rashi would be deemed to be option 1 statements, and as such would need to meet the test of Pshuto Shel Mikra. Question 3 will raise the issue as to what basis does Rashi have from within the standpoint of Pshuto Shel Mikra to make an assertion that Miriam was a prophetess who prophesied about the redemption of the Bnei Israel, where none of this information appears to be referenced in the account of the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu in Shmot Perek Aleph and Bet.